Today's Power Prayer series, we're going to be talking about life after death. And we have our Acyuta Gopi who will be joining us. I'm just looking forward to just having her come on in a second. And she's here right now. Of course, we've got on FB. We're getting on Instagram. Sorry, everybody. We just had a bit of a technical issue. Same problem.
No,
okay. We're good. Okay. We're good. Thank you so much, Radhika Suku. We saw your message. Thank you for holding on. Thank you, everybody. Come back on. Join. Because we want to make this an interactive session. Hey, Gopal Das on FB. We have all our people coming on right now. Daksh, Krish, KVD, Radhika Suku. There you are. Thank you so much. I saw, and we got as well Ritu Kosho. Thank you. Padma Molat, Elliot. I'll call you Elliot. Sounds good. Prabhus. Thank you so much on that. Okay. Rahul Chandra. Right. Everybody. This topic, let's not beat around it. It's one of those topics that, well, put it this way. Henry Van Dyke, if you've heard of him, and everybody, he said, some people are so afraid to die that they never begin to live. Some people are so afraid to die that they never begin to live, because, and this is something about life after death we're talking about here. And it's something I find quite profound. First of all, before we go into life after death, just the concept of death is quite scary, right?
Yeah, I remember reading in the Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, one of our spiritual guides and mystics, Sanatan Goswami. And he was a mystic who lived about 500 years ago. And he compiled basically all of the essence of all the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Into this Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the essence, the big nectar of Bhagavatam. And within it, there's a conversation that Lord Brahma, the creator, has with Narada Muni, who's like transcendental mystic traveling everywhere throughout the universe. So the creator lives an extremely long life according to like our standards. His lifespan, according to human years, is some 311 trillion years, give or take.
What?
Right? So, 311 trillion years. And within the pages of those Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Lord Brahma says, even I am constantly in anxiety thinking about when my own planet dissolves and when the end of my own lifespan comes. And so I felt like hopeful and also not so alone. This is the creator of worlds speaking. And even he's saying, even I'm in anxiety about what's going to happen at the end of life, of my own lifespan, as long as it may seem to human standards, right? So even he's in anxiety about it. So it's one thing that's kind of natural. It's kind of natural to be in a little bit of anxiety, to wonder about what happens at the end, to have that focus on life and the finality of death.
So on this, it's natural. And I think right now, everybody is feeling it probably more, that we sometimes take life for granted. Everyone, it just, if you agree, disagree, just put yes, no in the comments. But we take life for granted. And the reason I say that is because it's like we're wired that way, that we're going to live forever. We have this type of thing. We don't realize it's a finite thing. Like, some of us have turned 40 recently, and it's like, oh my God, that's like, could that be half of your life gone? Where's half my life gone?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's like you think you're going to just be here all the time. And Maharani idea said yes, unfortunately. Manjari for Life is saying also yes. KVD saying yes. You feel like it's not gonna happen. But then suddenly something happens, something like, okay, you know what, this can happen. One day we're gonna, we might die. So is there life after death? All these questions come into our minds. And sometimes it could feel like, oh yeah, they're saying that there's this beautiful place that you will go afterwards. You will not die. Hey, samsara, you live on. All these things come. And then it's like, there's two sides of the coin. Some people feel, you know what, maybe this is just to make us feel better. Like it's, it's like, okay, it's to make you feel better. And the other side is that it could be true. Of course, from a Krishna conscious angle, we say it is true. But these are the two angles we come on. So we think we'll live forever. Then we realize we're going to die. And then after that, we think, okay, I like this idea. It sounds quite comforting. I'm going to go to this amazing place. Everyone's ever youthful. Or everyone's dancing and happy. And it's always a festival.
Well, and it's like every spiritual path has one, pearly white gates and everything is beautiful. Everything is nice.
So on that basis, I just feel like we do have that thing. Then suddenly something will happen. Like yesterday, just yesterday, my good friend, we were talking and he said to me, as we're, is always, and right now in COVID, it's so important that we all connect with people and talk to them, see how they're feeling. And he says, all day I have not been feeling well. And I thought, well, what's wrong? I thought he was ill. But he said that I had this feeling in my stomach, at the bottom of my stomach, that something bad's going to happen today. And I was like, don't worry about it. It's nothing. These type of feelings are always there. What happened was we, of course, we didn't, then we put the phone down. And after that, I get a call later that his father had passed away. Just like that. And the first thing that went in my mind was, oh my God, shock. So it just happened. And he was so feeling true that he was so connected. He knew there was something wrong. He didn't know what it was. And his father passed away. And then suddenly we have a wake-up call. Oh my God, we're not immortal. We're not this. We're gonna. And then suddenly for maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we realize that. And COVID's here, we realize that. But then we go back to the same thing of living in that type of unaware ignorance that, I've got ages. So I think on this life after death, we have this concept. So maybe those concepts we can talk about what they are. And also if there's any questions everyone here has got on life after death, please do bring them up. This is the best time to bring them up. And we want to have this as real conversation as possible. So just say how you feel and we'll try and see what we can do and we can serve you as best we can. So I can see a lot of join on Instagram. Thank you so much. And also on our FB page. So we're going to look at both sides. So on this then, Acyuta Gopi, where would you like to start with life after death?
I mean, Srimad Bhagavatam is a wealth of information. And because I grew up hearing all of the pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam, for me, I feel like we can't have this discussion without speaking about Ajamil.
Yes.
Right? We have our quintessential second chance story. As a matter of fact, the devotees compile it into this book, A Second Chance, right?
Second Chance.
They have
amazing.
This book became like really important for me. So I'll tell you the personal story that I have after we talk about Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
So the story of Ajamil comes up within 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And like kind of smack dab in the middle of all of these cantos, right? All of these stories and books, we have this story of Ajamil. He was a Brahmin, born Brahmin, right? So with all the prestige and the pride that comes with it, he was totally dedicated to religious activities, all of the rituals, etc. Right? Going. He's going strong. One day, he happens to see he's walking through the forest. He sees a man embracing a prostitute. And he sees their whole romantic interaction. And from watching that interaction, he kind of thinks, maybe I've been missing out on some things in life, like I ought to give it a try. Now, Ajamil was already married at that point. His wife was quite lovely, but he's like, maybe things could be more exciting. Maybe there could be more passion. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And so he veers off, takes up the company of another prostitute, brings her home, and his wife is thinking.
Just checking sorry, you're just cutting out a little bit. So, but just so I'm just checking.
We good?
I'm just checking right now. It's comes in and out. You're going round in circles. It's rounded like samsara.
Really?
Samsara is happening on the screen. It's going round and round. Okay, let's see now. Right, can we hear? Okay, go. Go on, let's see. Let's try this now. Yeah, we are. Sorry, everyone's thinking on other channels. We've got our Instagram place on, so that's why. So you might think, what's he talking about? It's going round and round. I'm okay here. Then the other side must be thinking, oh, this is happening. What are you talking about? We're fine on Insta here. It's going the two ways. So apologies, both sides. I'm just making sure everybody's all right. Yeah. Okay. Right.
I think we're good.
We'll just as we bring Acyuta Gopi back onto some of our other pages. Ajamil, if those that want to check, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1 is where you will hear his story. So that's Canto 6, Chapter 1 is the place you need to go. And I'm just checking now. I think we might be good. Yes, we're back. Go. Yes.
So he takes up with a prostitute, brings her home. His wife is confused. She says, I thought we were happy. What's going on? He says, listen, I've found a new love. I've got passion in my life. Things are exciting now. And he spends decades with this new woman, has several children with her, at least 10 sons, many daughters. He gets to around 80-ish or so. And he has his youngest son, who's about 5, and he names that boy Narayan. And he is at the end of his life, and he's been gambling, trying to make money for his new wife, because she has loads of necessities, right? So he's like, she has all these things that she needs, and I have to provide them for her because I am the man. So he's now been gambling and making his money that way. And he's been cheating people and making his money that way and doing all kinds of things. And his sons are kind of like his thugs and henchmen. And so in that way, he's got like a whole mafia around him. And he's got the smallest one. And one day, he finds himself in the midst of health crisis because he's like 80, he's pushing it. So he's dying. And as he's dying, he calls out for the one thing that he can think of that really gives him joy, his son, Narayan. So he thinks of his 5-year-old son. He calls out, oh, Narayan, 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 Narayan. And then he dies.
Cool.
Immediately, who show up but these fearsome looking beings with they have sharp teeth and pointed nails and copper hair and all these features and they have chains and dogs, and they are gruesome. And they are there ready to yank literally the soul from Ajamil's body.
So
and
gruesome.
As Ajamil, right? Oh. Yeah. I'm kind of glad we're talking about this mostly in the daytime.
It's daytime mostly, for you. It's nighttime for me here. I think in India they're about to go to sleep. The poor people there. I feel sorry for them. Sorry for that, everybody. Poor guys.
So, as Ajamil is looking on this incredibly fearsome picture of his future, He is terrified, and rightly so. But then who show up but the heroes of our story? There are these beautiful, divine, shining beings that also show up with 4 arms, all looking dark, dark blue, almost blackish, with yellow dhotis and crowns and helmets and ornaments and Sudarshan chakras and clubs and lotus flowers. They are effulgent. And they begin to order around these fearsome beings. Stop, what are you doing? These fearsome beings say, we're doing our job. We are the order carriers of Yamaraj. We get our orders from him. He is our supreme being. And these other beings say, well, we get our supreme orders from Lord Vishnu. And he's the most supreme being. So you have to leave Ajamil. And they say, but he's been so sinful. He's committed every single sin you can possibly think of. He's done anything with anyone and all kinds of, he's like killed animals and done all these things. And so we are supposed to take him to Yamaraj for judgment. Vishnu Dutas say, but we hear that if anyone just once chants the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they have freed themselves from more sins than they can commit. So now Ajamil is sinless. You have to let him go. There's an argument back and forth. These Yama Dudas are confused. The Vishnu Dudas are firm in their conviction. They say, look, let him go or you do battle with us. Finally, the Yama Dudas have to back off. They leave Ajamil where he is. Ajamil gets put back into that body for some time. He comes back to consciousness and realizes, my God, I've been saved, quite literally. I was facing the most hellish future, and these shining beings came and saved me through what I consider to be no fault of my own, no cause of my own, but just through the mercy of the Supreme Lord and the chanting of his holy names. He immediately goes on pilgrimage, turns his entire life around with whatever little time he has left. He goes to Hardwar and he takes up devotional service, perfects his life. It's not that much time that's left either, but he uses that time wisely, perfects his life with that stark reminder, right, in his heart that he can never forget. And at the end of his life, those same Vishnu Dudas come along with Lord Vishnu and a personal like flower airplane. And now Ajamil gets the best destination. So, you know, I grew up like this was the example that I heard throughout my life from the time that I was first born all the way up until now. But when I was about 17, 18, I kind of started to wonder, you know, like what if, I mean, I've heard all these things. What if everybody's wrong? You know, Christians are saying, oh, do this and then you'll go to heaven. And do this, or like you'll go to hell, you die, that's it, for eternal damnation. You know, Muslims will say one thing, Hare Krishna say another, other Hindus say something else. Like, I'm like, what if we're all wrong? You know, who's to say?
It's like the moral police, and some people will see it like that. Like, for example, right now in today's society, we have the law, and the law will tell us if we do something wrong, hey, you're behind bars, or you're going to get a fine, etc. Maybe in those days, and this is what some people do come out with, maybe in those days, they didn't have the police. So the way they used to do is to strike fear into the people that if you do this, then you'll get struck down, confessions, etc. So this aspect, and just on this point, that we should live a good life, and this was a way. And then I thought it one way. Actually, if it helps people become a good person, then what's wrong in it? Number one, like on a moral compass, hey, that's great. But there's another thing what people are forgetting. That I know there's God fearing, but here we're talking about God loving. There's a difference, isn't it? We're talking about, you know, and I'm using the G word, but you know, God, but it's here, and it's actually said. And this is why I really take back, like we're talking about Srimad Bhagavatam. So Canto 10, Chapter 1, verses 5 to 7, it talks about that if at the time of death, one can remember Krishna, one's life is successful at the time of death. So that if you can remember him, your life is successful. And you know what's really weird here? Here, Ajamil, and this is where I feel like the moral of the story comes out on many levels, but one is that he was not even thinking about divine. He was thinking about his son. But still, by just uttering that name, he had that type of being saved, which I find like, hang on, he didn't even mean you. He was looking over here.
Yeah.
Right? So this shows that we're talking about at the level of just on a normal level, you think, wow, how amazing is the divine that it still will save you, even if you're not thinking. That's why in Krishna consciousness, we have children. We all have spiritual names because we like Acyuta Gopi Jagannatha Kirtanananda. You think of the divine. You think of all the aspects of the divine. Even my child's name, I've added Krishna into it. You know, like, well, me and my wife, we've added Krishna. Not because we at the time we think about that, but it's this aspect of we need to start thinking about it now. We have to be in this type of mode that we are not just waiting. And so just coming back to the story, there will be those people like, yeah, it doesn't sound lovely. All these people in gold and everything coming down, saving. You can make a movie out of this. But you know what? On this basis, one thing that I would say to those people is that the moral compass of this Ajamil, who came from a decent, what we call a Brahmana family, a priestly family, you know, even he was turned, because this is what the world is like. Because the materialistic activities that go on really can corrupt us if we're not careful. But he, at the time of death, said the name, in this case, another name of Krishna, Narayan. And then suddenly what happened? It came, he was saved. And then he realized, oh my God, I have to do something good in this world. And he changed. So he was lucky that way, which is amazing. But so those, I would love to hear your questions on this. Please bring them in and let's see how we can go forward. So let's have a look on that. Should we go for that? What do you want? Go
on that topic,
go for it.
It can sound fantastical. It
sounds
fantastical.
Fantastical. I like that.
Right? Like, you hear this entire saga and you're like, okay, it's in a book. I heard it, fine. And even I grew up with it, born and raised chanting Hare Krishna. And I still, 17, 18 was kind of like, well, is it really? And when I was about 18, my mother's mom, my grandma, was passing away. And she had throat cancer and some other things. And she couldn't speak very well towards the end. She was in the hospital, hooked up to so many tubes. And my mom and my sister and one of my aunts, they were going to see her quite often. And one day, my grandma started freaking out. She just started like really getting incredibly agitated. She's like moving. She's trying to gesture, all these things. My mom says, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Pulling." My mom said, "What?" She said, "They're pulling me." She said, what are you talking about? There's no one here. She said, "They're pulling me. They're trying to pull me." She said, "Who?" And my aunt had recently dyed her hair this like coppery, auburn, dark reddish color. And my grandma knew nothing about Srimad Bhagavatam. Although my mom was a devotee, her mom was not. Not only was she not a devotee, but she wasn't even favorable towards it so much. So my grandmother looks at my aunt and points and she says, "Hair like that." So my aunt had cut her hair kind of short-ish and had dyed it this like copperish color. She said, "Hair like that." My mom freaks out. She looks at my sister and she goes, "The wrong people are here." And my aunt, everybody's like, now everybody's just trying to figure out like what's going on. My mom and my sister are kind of like, oh no. And then my grandmother points at my mom's neck beads and says, give me. And so now I'm like, when I hear this story, I'm like, Mom, what did you do? She's like, I gave her my neck beads. I'm like, you took them off? You a crazy person? But in this act of surrender, this Vaishnav who really, to this day, I'm like, my mom, you have seen some things. She took off her neck beads, put them around my grandma, and then my grandmother calmed down. And then they went away. And after hearing that, like, I will never doubt Srimad Bhagavatam, not ever again.
Oh, wow.
Never will I doubt Srimad Bhagavatam ever again. And that is the story of how my mom saved my grandmother.
That is, see, and then we love to hear that. It's such a nice, see, it just shows. So at the time of death, we just don't know, like ourselves, we don't know what's going to happen. But actually in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's written it in such description. That's why we're talking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, life after death. It tells the whole thing. And just like you just mentioned, where your grandma and what happened to her, and how you can reference it to what's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, and this is from a lady that has, number one, not read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Number two, she was actually someone that was against through saying this type of philosophy, or not in belief of this philosophy. And then suddenly it's like, oh my God, and give me those neck beads. And the neck beads she's talking about is these we have. So
and it, you know, it's not like she knew, it's not even like she knew that would have saved her, but somehow there's an instinctual knowledge, right? And so Srila Prabhupada often says there's no such thing as instinct. Yes. What happens is the soul has gone through so many lifetimes and so many bodies. The soul has all of these impressions. The soul knows. Wow. So there's, in essence, Srila Prabhupada says there's no such thing as instinct. Your soul knows all of the things already. And it pulls on so much different knowledge from here, there, everywhere. So yeah, I find it amazing. And just to see the power of one person becoming a Vaishnav. One person taking to devotional life can save generations of a family.
Yeah. That's amazing. So on this, I think it'd be so good. Now you've heard a bit from us too. Let's see some of the questions that come in, because there's quite a few questions, and it's going to be a bit of a random order, but we're just going to go. So if you've got any questions, bring them up, and I'm just going to start to fire them off. So let's go to Crystal 108 first. She's come out with, hi Crystal, thank you always for joining, by the way. I never feared death, but the fear of death of others. Do we have an idea of how long it is after leaving that we come to a new shell, please? So I think she's talking another body. So, like that's a very deep, profound question, Crystal.
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing is there are so many. Vedic science is really scientific. Yeah. Right? When we think about all of the end of life ceremonies that happen, that priests perform, they tell you it takes about 12, 13 days for the soul to do this. And then it takes about this amount of time for the soul to do that. And so sometimes it tells you it takes about like 7 months for them to transition and then do this and do that. So yeah, there are, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, there are timelines. Every soul is different. I've heard that there's that 12, 13 day period in between as with the transitionary period. I've heard then there might be a soul review after that can take up to about 7 months, but I'm not sure whose 7 months, because time gets different. The minute you exit a body, time is different. So I'm not exactly sure whose timing it is. But those 12, 13 days usually are quite critical.
And those 12, 13 days, actually, you'll see it's observed in quite a few Vedic traditions, especially in the Eastern countries, that those 12, 13 days will be filled with speaking about the divine, doing devotional songs. In this case, we talk about kirtan, bhajans, because what it is in those 12 days, remember, you've been attached for how long to this body? We say we're not this body, but when we say, we'll look in the mirror, go, we're not this body, oh, my hair's out of place. Oh my God, my beard. You know, we have that type of thing. So it's like we're saying it, but are we actually believing? But when you're forced out of it, then you realize like, oh my God, I want to get back in. This is what I've been hearing from, and you see the pastimes of people talking about it, that have that life after death experience, that, oh my God, I've been detached. And it's said that the transition period is about 12 to 13 days of actually that person, or, you know, or that being around, because they're attached either to family, either to their body, etc. And this is something quite, and that's the reason, by actually doing devotional, spiritual practices, it helps that body to detach. And remember that aspect of, we are not the body, we're the spirit soul. And that's another reason why mainly that's done. So we love to hear some other points. And you're right, Acyuta Gopi, is about 12, 13 days. Some do 13. Unlucky for some. But maybe that's where it comes from.
And on that same point, with filling those days with Bhagavad-Gita, with Kirtan, with Japa, like even in this second chance book, Srila Prabhupada makes so many points. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reactions to more sins than he can commit. If one chants the holy name, even in a helpless condition, or even without desiring to do so, all of one's sinful reactions immediately depart, just as a lion's roar causes the small animals in the forest to flee in fear. So filling the atmosphere with the holy name aids in the liberation of the soul, helping not only the soul to detach, but to journey to a better destination. So it's like willingly or unwillingly, you get to fill up the atmosphere with the chanting of the holy name, so that a person who once chants the holy name of the Lord, consisting of the two syllables, Hari, guarantees his path to liberation.
There you go. So chanting, the chanting, and there's this aspect of, like you just mentioned, because do devotional service or devotional, reading, like the Bhagavad-Gita Chapter 2 is a very profound chapter to read if you're going through something like this, because it's the chapter where it's actually trying to this aspect of, we are not this body, we're the spiritual soul. When we die, it's like giving up old garments and putting on new garments, and it's talking about this. And see, there's two aspects to this. I was seeing is that us as well, because we are also mourning, and we might be thinking about those people that are passed. So for us, it's like also helps us to detach, because that attachment to us is from coming from that part, and us to them. So by reading the Bhagavad Gita as well, in this case, chapter 2, it really, really will help. So if anybody's having this going on, and the coronavirus is rife, and some people are not making it through, and if anybody says, what can we do, we recommend, if you can't do kirtan, you can't do anything, just the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, say read that chapter 2. It's in English as well.
And the good thing about chapter 2, because I always thought it was a little bit like, I was like, that's very interesting. I mean, it does talk about how the soul leaves the body and all these things, but what I also love is that it's the entire contents of the Gita summarized. Yes. Krishna puts everything up in chapter 2. He's like, if you don't get to the rest of it, just in case, here, have the whole chapter 2, one of the longest chapters. Here you go. You get the whole contents of the Gita summarized. So it's like nutshell version. You get the whole Gita and all the benefits thereof within that one chapter. Also, if it's 12 to 13 days, usually there's an Ekadashi bound to be in there somewhere. So it's always good to dedicate whatever good merits and whatever fasting, whatever pious activities, religious activities we can do on that Ekadashi to that departed person. It does help. It does guarantee their liberation. That's always assured and promised within so many Ekadashi stories. So that's also
fantastic. There. So I'm going to bring up another question And that question is coming from Ritu Koshal. Can you speak a bit about someone who may take their life, but at the time of death, as a devotee, the person may have been thinking and chanting the Lord's names? Those are the two contradictions. How can we understand this? Very good question. Very good question.
I mean, here's the thing, are they contradictions? They're not. I mean, are they? We think, or we immediately put the thing on there that once you start chanting Hare Krishna, then why should you ever be depressed? Like, oh, how could that happen to you? Then you must not be chanting hard enough or good enough or well enough. But it happens. It happens. There have been several devotees who have taken their lives. Look at Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Within the pages of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is the story of Junior Haridas, not to be confused with Haridas Namacharya, who would chant 300,000 names of Sri Krishna every day. Junior Haridas, Chota Haridas, was a brahmachari. And within his mind, he had thought of a woman. But he was still externally continuing to be a brahmachari. Lord Chaitanya, being Paramatma and understanding the heart of all the devotees, knew what happened. And he had kind of condemned Chota Haridas. He said, go away. I can't be associated with you anymore. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj, my family guru, Srila Prabhupada, they state that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so unwavering when it came to this idea of hypocrisy. Right? When we look at Jagai and Madai, he was so soft. But because they were ready to honestly and sincerely say, this is my fault, these are my issues. With Chota Haridas, who had kept everything repressed and inside, this false renunciation leading to hypocrisy, Mahaprabhu was so against it that he's so unwavering, unwilling to budge on this principle. I can't be associated with you anymore. Chota Haridas says, there must be something I can do. Something, Mahaprabhu, there must be something. But because he's unwilling to honestly state what has happened, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, there's nothing. I'll never see you again. Chota Haridas, feeling such despair and depression, even still, as a devotee, right, an intimate associate of Mahaprabhu, jumps in the Ganga and takes his life. So we hear from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, they say, what is the fate of someone who takes their life? They say that they take up a ghostly body. Chota Haridas becomes a ghost. Now, sometimes as devotees, we can get a little judgmental, right? So then we immediately start thinking, oh, well, if you do this, then you're going to be a ghost, doomed, bus, done. Chota Haridas, he does become a ghost. But what does he do as a ghost? His seva was to sing beautiful songs for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As a ghost, he continues his seva. And he sings for Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he asks one day, what happened to Chota Haridas? They say he jumped in the Ganga. He ended his life, Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu says, Externally, he shows nothing. Internally, he continues to accept the service of Chota Haridas. Now, this confused me for a really long time because I was like, well, I know my Mahaprabhu. Like, I know my Krishna. How could this have ended? Like, what happens? And recently, my sister was reading, and in a lecture conversation, devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, well, what happened to Chota Haridas? He becomes a ghost. Does he go to hell? All these things. And Srila Prabhupada says, no. He was an intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After his ghostly existence, which was like that long, he goes back to Godhead. So Krishna does not ever go back on his word to his devotees. So when Krishna says, you think of me, I'll be there for you. Even in the case of Chota Haridas, who took his own life, which is an extremely unfortunate situation, right? He does take on this ghostly body, but he continues his devotional service and then still goes back home, back to Godhead. So in this regard, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had a disciple who had felt so much despair and so much depression that he had taken his own life. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said he wanted to preach thereafter in such a loving way, in such an inclusive way, that just so that if he could save one more of his disciples from ever having to feel that way, feel so left out ever again. So it doesn't have to be a contradiction. I feel like when we see those things happen, instead of thinking about the fate of that person, we should think about making our hearts softer, more inclusive, more loving, so that other devotees don't ever have to feel that way ever again. So that somehow they can feel like somewhere there's space for me. So whenever I hear of devotees taking their own lives, instead of thinking, oh, well, you're going to be a ghost or whatever, I think, how can I make myself more loving so that that person can feel, okay, maybe there's one space for me.
This. And, this is the part that I think everybody has to understand, that somebody taking their life, think how they must be feeling. Think what they're going through. And we need to really be there for each other. And, I was speaking to one of my friends, and he was, he's got children. And one thing that's come very clear is sometimes men hide what they feel. And I know women a bit more, you will sometimes speak, even ladies may, but they definitely, and they've got a dad's group. And on this dad's group, it was talking about, some of them were saying, look, I'm not feeling too good. And they're like talking about, things like suicide. And this is the thing that we need to reach out, because the last thing we want is people to do that. Because let's face it, that is not the way, or the way you should try to do it. Oh yes, I'm thinking of the divine, and I'm gonna, do that. No, because our intentions need to check our intentions and why we're doing certain things. And if you're on this call right now, and you are feeling down, reach out. You can reach out to Acyuta Gopi. You can reach out to me. We will listen. So please do reach out. This is the thing about life after death, even getting to that point of death. And these are topics I think that we should talk about more. And I'm glad that you brought this up. It's a very delicate topic, but I think it's important that we do talk about it. And so please, everybody on the call, on the session today, really appreciate those questions. Let's make them real, bring them on. So I just want to, one thing is, time's gone so quick. I think we'll have to.
We started it. We restarted it, so we have a couple of extra minutes.
We do have a couple of extra minutes. And what I was thinking is that next week, though, we'll start talking about the destination of death. Like you talked a few things, and I think that could be our next part to this. So we'll keep on this topic right now. I'm just looking at some questions. I've had some. Radhika Soku says, love this pastime. I think the pastime of Jamil that you were talking about, it just shows when you dedicate your life to God, knowingly or unknowingly, God will save you. Having said that, promiscuous name saved his soul. And then we've got Ahovila. Hey, it's good to see you. My second favorite part of the story is how intelligent the Yamadutas are, he says. And remember, we had the Vishnus and the Yamus. So the Yamadutas, the not so good people, and the Vishnu Dutas, the heavenly beings that came down. And it's saying here, they question Lord Yamaraj about his power. So that's really good. And then we've got this aspect.
Did you know what's kind of crazy is we never think about all the different like bodies that you could have. But Yamadutas have families. You can be born as one of them. Like, like my Guru Maharaj was saying, he's like, you ever see people who enjoy inflicting sadness on others. And then they say, oh, but I'm doing it under the order of my guru. You know, they enjoy policing people harshly. You're like, you know, there's a body for that. And I was kind of struck like, whoa, you're right, Guru Maharaj. So, you know, we've seen people. We see the types of people that we want to be and the types of people that we might not want to be.
You know, we've had so many questions. I have to snapshot these somehow.
Wow.
My God, it's just so many. I'm just going to try. Apologies, everybody. That's why we need more sessions. So I'm just gonna try and have a look. Oh yes, Radhika. Yes, I wish your sessions was longer. It's so interesting, and we learn so much. Thank you so much, Radhika. Okay. Oh, question. This is good. Were there no souls before Krishna? I've had a question from S.Lea. S.Lea.P. And you've been asking some nice questions, by the way. Thank you for those.
I mean, according to Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the soul is eternal, ever existing, you know, primeval, not slain when the body is slain, right? So those verses are kind of well known throughout Bhagavad-Gita. So of course there were. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it talks about how Shri Krishna desires the company of the soul. So even if they are unmanifested, and material nature is unmanifest, right? He manifests material nature, and then he says he glances over it to reawaken the conditioned souls. So as long as there's Krishna, there's souls.
So there you go. And I've had one person, Kabachandrika. How do I contact you, Mataji? Talking to you, Acyuta Gopi. I need to reach out, please. Yes, you can contact Acyuta Gopi. You're on Instagram right now, so just go and type in a name, Acyuta Gopi, Acyuta Gopi. And she's actually shortened the name now. Govinda girl _ Acyuta Gopi. Govinda girl _ Acyuta Gopi. Check it out. If anyone wants to reach out as well, here is Jagannatha _Dasa. So JAGANNATHA _DASA. I should make it much more shorter. Something like hashtag JKD. Hey, GKD. I'm just coming out there. Here we go.
Hey.
So seeing your yatras right now, they're going great.
Yeah, they're giving me life, man. Tirupati Yatra is everything.
Yeah, he's smashing it. So we've got. So I'm just going to try and see if I can get one more question in if I can. Let's see. It's like a drum roll going on here. Okay. We've touched that. Okay. Let me just see this. This is one. And personal for means of one who goes through samsara. Let me just try and find a whole question. Please write in one question, guys, if you can. There's so many. The thing is, there'll be one person writing it, then suddenly there's some other messages, and then there'll be. So, okay, I'm just going to try and find last question. And anybody else got one question? Okay, so I'm going to just check on this one. So, what actually, okay, we talked about the 13 days. We got 13 days. We got so many on 13 days. I think most of it should be covered. And I think next week, tune in and put your question again if we haven't done it today. So I want to just finish on this point then, if I may, Acyuta Gopi. Life after death. So there is life after death. This is not the end, correct? And why?
Yeah, and I think, you know, this question kind of came up last week. It was kind of like, why should I dedicate my life to this process, which says that there is life after death? You know, because we were talking about Krishna consciousness and chanting, and they're like, well, why should I dedicate? Like, how do I know that there's life after death? For me, I had that really, really stark realization that gave me goosebumps with my grandmother that I will never forget, that kind of definitely reinforced for me that Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us the clues and the hints, better that we take it up. Like, we always are skeptical about religion. We put all our skepticism over there. But when it comes to scientific things, we're really ready to risk our lives on it day in and day out. Totally ready. We never say, well, how do I know that gravity is a thing? You should prove to me. Help me jump out this window. Right? No, we go, no, so many people have done it. So let me take that on faith. Right? And we don't know the intricacies of how gravity is working or why. Yeah. We simply take it. I like
my little one. My little one just had to give me a monkey sound. So there we go. Yes.
And we never say to the doctor before the surgery, now I want you to outline everything and show me your practice surgeries of all the things that you've done. We say, okay, do the surgery. We take it on faith that the surgeon's going to do what they do. We put our faith in a doctor. Before we get on the plane, we don't sit there and question the pilot.
No.
We take it on faith. But then when it comes to religion, and we have spiritual teachers who tell us, okay, this is how it goes. This is what we do. We go, no, I can't believe you. I'm going to need you to personally prove to me. All right? Because they're like, oh, but what if I get cheated? And I'm like, yeah. And what if you get on a plane and the pilot's drunk, but you still get on the plane? You don't think I'm never going to fly until I see every single pilot personally, and I see their credentials and I see their licenses? No, we get on the plane with faith. Every day we go to sleep on the faith that I'm going to wake up the next morning. We don't stay awake all night thinking if I go to sleep at any moment, that could be it for me. So with that same faith, we should take these processes, which at least to me have been proven to be absolute and true. We should take up these things. Yes, there's life after death. And, it's like, do you really want it to be proven to you? Or do we just want to argue? Because when it gets to be proven to us and we have those shaken up issues, then we think, why did God give me that near-death experience? Oh, God. When the plane starts going down and everybody starts praying, all those people who were atheists start going, oh, God, help me. Then we think, oh, why did God have to put me through that? It's like, well, you said prove it. So, sometimes we have to try and put our skepticism to the side, or in its right place, at least.
So the aspect of a little bit of open-mindedness, team, and everybody really goes far. I've had one other question. A Hoveler said, do you record these sessions so people can watch again later? Yes, we do. You can connect on Instagram, everybody. So you'll see it if you're on FB. Instagram is a place that we are quite a lot. So I'll point like this so the ones on Facebook can see. You can see above me, Instagram, Jagannath_Dasa. And it'll be on IGTV probably about 10-15 minutes after we finish our session, and it'll be uploaded onto there, so you can have a look and see. But I think there's so much to talk on this, and we'll definitely do a bit of a series on this, because so many questions are coming through. And yes, I would say if you're on Instagram as well, use the question box. Thank you, somebody mentioned that. And Sonam, thanks for all your help as well. You're answering some of my questions. Really appreciate that too. So if you do use, if you can use the question box in Insta, and that way we can see your questions as well. And if you're on FB, on Facebook, join us on the Insta family if you like as well. That's a place. Another place you can connect is on YouTube. So if you've had enough of social media and you think, oh my God, that's it, I've had enough, I've deleted my accounts. Well, we're still there. We're on YouTube. So you can join there. So Jagannatha, Adasa. You just go there, and even Acyuta Gopi's on YouTube. Got amazing kirtans with her family. Check it out. I've been noticing you're coming close to that 2K on YouTube soon, isn't it? It's like 1.7 or something K. Just like boom. It's really, really well done. It's really nice to see, and everyone's connecting. So, and before we go into a bit of kirtan, books are the basis. You talk about Srila Prabhupada's books, we should try, but also check out Acyuta Gopi's book. Prema Mala is the book. So just go www.mybook.to/PREMA, Prema, meaning love. You know, it's a chain of love. Prema Mala, you know, that lovely thread of love. Just check it out, and you can get it online, and it's there. So we're going to carry on this next week. And who was it that asked the question about life after death? Can you remember, Acyuta Gopi? I'm trying to remember.
I can't remember.
I'm going to check it out. I'll check out our last
I
session.
remember it was on Facebook.
It was on FB.
In the Facebook comments. Yeah.
So here we go. And we've got Mrs. Green 702 says, I love listening to you sing, Acyuta. Oh, I think that's a hint. She's giving us a hint. We'll take the hint, Mrs. Green. Thank you so much. Here we go. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you so much. And just want to say, keep strong, everybody. Keep the faith. And let's keep these open discussions going. And, thank you, Acyuta Gopi, for reminding us the power of the names of the divine. And it's so important. And as Ritu has said, COVID has been a good reminder, especially about life after death. It makes us think about it. And I just wanted to highlight that. So let's take it on that way. And thank you to all the people that are joining in every week. We want to make these topics relatable. We want to make these topics about now. And if there's anything, and you saw from last time, this topic has come because one of you mentioned about life after death. So if there's anything on your mind, we will try and serve you however we can. So we're going to have part 2 of life after death, because we talked about the aspect of dying and how it can occur and how people feel. But actually, what are those destinations after? So the life after death. So we're going to go for part 2. So please join us next Thursday for this. And until then, keep safe, keep in touch, and really just, meditate to help us elevate our minds, to keep those type of thoughts at bay as well. So this is very important. And keep well. Anything you want to say, Acyuta Gopi, before we end the session?
You've said it beautifully.
Oh, so thank you. And Hare Krishna.